Dia wasn't a work I must say them. Mumpia Banti says, I am Mumaka Busu Samunoi. I, some was you on Yango Boni. I've heard you shaking the work I must say them. Mumra Banti says, I am Mumaka Busu Samunoi. Ajanimio, from his Yango Boma, a very many dear. Ajanimio. A very many dear. I come to see a baby, but I see you come. The moment I come. Every day to the sweet. I come to see a bus as is to the Nadian Gobo. Eh, Mamma Radia Samuti will come. Every day to the sweet. China for sorry, I was a Buddha. India for sorry, I was a Hindu. I felt that bunny and do the moon for a Mabusum who won't wait. India for sorry, I was a Hindu. Natana for so sorry, I was a Buddha. I feel that bunny and Banu, Umfere Mabusum one way. I found so for the casting and when you're dear to Mono. I found confirm with the TV, so I'm with Jamano. Share coronavirus, never know. Mugabe solution, maybe I sing it. Now you would say you are so powerful. That's it. I found so for a Monday Domutum, someone more dumb baby or my mono. Umpia mera pantie, wamera meya soli na yenje. Coronavirus inti, ememanyina yemma. Coronavirus inti, asafu anyina yekom. Ego makasi abibaza zisu, nanyediani komo radia samu kom biri nadro. Nyame mamu mampayo. For our here, but in the for more. Hey, I can see an abano, yeah, wound and pano soon. A radiac can want it. A man in a yacum. A radiac can was taking the woman, you're singing and was so your young Ponti Musono. Samosan and Imonamda. Sajanimio. I'm very many dear. I'm very many dear. I'm very many dear. Esaba manyano wadro. Ibolaba manyano wadro. Ave coronavirus namba no wa Kristo fa jimba. But esaba yanyano wadro. Ibolaba yenyano wadro. Ave coronavirus namba no wa Kristo fa jimba bongoa. Abu onyangu panu masam namudi asinche chenya ntai namuzuzuze. Mubefa muwediara. Endi zajanimia. Mufra misanya ngupoma afe mani die wa usura nyangu bonza nani wanam afe mani die wa yinya I'm from Rade, Obi many money, Messiah, 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 Nyakupoa. I'm very dear, Messiah, Nyakupoa. I'm very dear.
Hope Channel, changing lives.
If there is anything that we wish to change in the child, we should first examine it and see whether it is not something that could better be changed in ourselves. C.J. Dwan. Once again, good afternoon and welcome to the program Wounds of the Heart. We're going to help you to heal that thing that has caused wounds in your heart. Today, this afternoon, we will treat a beautiful topic in this situation that the country and the entire world find itself. And I have a beautiful guest, and when the time comes, I will introduce her. She has been on my show before, so she wouldn't need so much of introduction, but then I'll mention her and tell you what she does. In case someone is seeing her for the first time, that person will have a fair idea about my guest. If you want to join this show on social media, Hope TV GH is live now. Facebook and Instagram, you get some tidbits there. YouTube, we are there live as we speak. And if you want to send your comment or your questions to our WhatsApp line, is 0559 680066, 0559 680066. In case you want to call when the time comes, you can call this number 0302 959065, 0302 959065, and when you call, we will respond to you well. I'll go for this break. When I come, I'll introduce my guest and introduce the topic, and we'll set the ball rolling. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back.
Are you looking at unlocking life secrets, building a marital mindset, developing successful marriage habits, staying together, resolving conflict, and knowing whether you're a good parent? Then join us on Hope Channel as we present a 10-day relationship seminar under the theme, Two Hearts, One Beat. On set will be Dr. Daniel Day, Senior Lecturer in Ethics, Practical Theology, and Counseling. Ikwe, inspirational speaker, motivator, teacher, author, life coach. Grace Saki, Lancers counseling psychologist, educator, and retired midwife. Wednesday 15 to Friday 24th April 2020, 7 p.m. each night. Our special guest will be Willie and Elian Oliver, host of Real Family Talk on Hope Channel International, Director of Family Ministries at General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist. Hope Channel, changing lives.
Welcome back from the break. Let me use this privilege to introduce my guest, Mami Ellen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the show, Wounds of the Heart.
Thank you very much.
This is the second time coming to the show, and please, how is the feeling this pandemic? How are you feeling?
You know, initially it was a bit unusual, but we kind of settled into it. Got a nice routine going.
That is wonderful. Let's not forget. Ellen Yanka is a clinical pharmacist and a mental health practitioner. So she's going to tell us much about what I'm going to ask her. This afternoon we are treating the topic PTSD. That's post-traumatic stress disorder in children. If I may ask, Mami Ellen. Since you are so keen in such an area. What is post-traumatic stress disorder in children?
Okay, so post-traumatic stress disorder. It seems like a big few words for one condition.
Yeah.
So in every event, our body has what we call the fight or flight. When there's stress, the body gets into that mode. Usually that goes away when the trigger is gone. Now, when we talk about post-traumatic stress, trauma is a disturbing or distressing event in one's life. Something usually the body finds difficult to cope with. That's trauma. So when we talk about post-traumatic stress, it means that the event has happened, but afterwards you are still experiencing the stress that was associated with that trauma. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a mental health condition where the event has happened and passed, but in the mind it hasn't gone. So in simple terms, that's post-traumatic stress. So you've had an event, a traumatic event for that matter. The stress response was there, it's been dealt with, it's gone, the trigger's gone, but that stress feeling and stress mental trigger is still there.
So what are some of the events that probably might be traumatic to the child to the extent that after it's been gone, you still have that in mind?
Now, before I even go into that, we all experience stress, but not everybody will get this post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, events that will cause PTSD, as the short acronym, are things like natural disasters. For some people, when there was this Hurricane Katrina, people that were caught up in it, some of them developed PTSD afterwards. Even animal bites. I know someone who got PTSD from bee. They had to fight bees when they went into a garden they didn't realize was a bee keeping, and the panic and the stress of it. And every time they're walking into a garden, anything similar to that event, they get these panics and occasionally they get nightmares and things about it. So natural disasters, animal bites, for example, physical abuse. Physical abuse is one of the main things that we see in our setting. Example, caning is something we do almost routinely. Now, for most children, that's fine. If someone has a very bad experience where the cane was used, they can develop PTSD from that. So there is that. Sexual abuse is another one, especially where it's violent.
Where it's violent,
Yes. Also, violent attacks can cause that. So there are different traumas that could cause PTSD. A lot of the times, to people who are not so inclined, it seems like it was nothing.
It was nothing.
Car accidents is one. Car accidents. And post-traumatic stress doesn't only occur when you are the one experiencing it. It can also occur when you witness a traumatic event.
Either it hits you or you witness.
Yes. Or it happens to someone close to you.
Close to you. So when a child's friend dies in school.
Yes, that could trigger something for a child predisposed to that. Also, you might not have been in the accident, but you were driving behind the car that went into the accident. You might have post-traumatic from the event. So you are not the one actually experiencing the event, but you were so close to it that you can. So it's just experienced and witnessed.
So in the current situation in the pandemic, the COVID-19 we're experiencing, can it have some toll on the life of the child because he or she has never experienced a thing in life before, even the adult?
That's true. And in our setting, we're probably not seeing it so much, but in the countries like Italy and Spain, where literally on the roads you see the coffins going and your life is so different, for some children that could be a trauma that might not leave them for a very long time. So it can, and these things are out of the usual. These things are not anticipated. They happen, and if the child is not able to discuss it, deal with it, for those who are predisposed, they could bring post-traumatic stress.
So in case you just join in, we're discussing post-traumatic stress disorder in children, because our children are vulnerable to the extent that we don't listen to our children. There are things that they are going through in life, but we need to have time to talk about with them. And that's why today, this afternoon, we are discussing the PTSD. And please don't, you know, you have a sibling, a younger one, you have a child, you have a niece or a nephew. We need to learn all these things so that we can be able to go through with them and help them out in things that we are discussing, especially with the traumatic experiences, of which in our culture, it is very difficult for us to allow our children to know what is happening. If someone's died in an area when we were young, they wouldn't tell you the truth, especially if your father or your mother is dead. They will coin certain things and tell you. How is that helpful as you?
So I would say that is completely unhelpful, because the child has these thoughts and feelings in them that needs to be discussed or talked about. And usually once they deal with that, they're okay. However, if these things are shrouded in some kind of mystery, because for example, there was a little boy whose dad asked him to go and buy porridge. He left the house. When he came back, he saw the neighbors all surrounding the house. What had happened was his father had hung himself. Now, he didn't see the hanging, but he knew there was something wrong, because all he saw was his daddy wrapped in a cloth and moved out of the house. And then they said, oh, he fell sick, or he fell, and they just taken him to the hospital. Now, he was 13. So he knew something wasn't right, because the man was okay a few minutes ago, and then suddenly he's being taken to the hospital. Now, things like that are not helpful, because now he's an adult. It still plays on his mind. Every time he sees people gathered around the house, he gets a flashback on the day his father died. And even then, when the father died, they didn't tell him that day. They waited a few days and then said, oh, when he went to the hospital. Meanwhile, he was at the mortuary the whole time. So not discussing things is a big thing. And especially things like sexual assaults, where people are made to be quiet about it, it's a bombshell waiting to go off. It is definitely not the right way.
Because with what you just said, I had this lady that she was molested, assaulted when she was young. The father told her she shouldn't talk about it. She grew up a little bit in the early teens. Another guy assaulted her sexually. She was informed not to talk about it, and now she's a lesbian because she can't trust men. She can't trust men. So if the father could have said something about it, yes, it's indeed that thing has happened, and allowing the law to take its course, I think that the lady wouldn't grow to have that lesbianism in mind, but rather will know that is how life is, and that is probably it has happened. So as you're saying, we need to talk about it. And if I may ask, does PTSD comes with something else? Is it associated with
It can be. So as we're saying, the child, as we're discussing today, is under some form of stress because of that event. It can lead to depression. Especially, like we're saying, in cases where you're not allowed to talk about it. It can lead to depression. It can lead to a lot of anxiety. Like I mentioned, this little boy now, a grown man.
Now.
Anytime people are gathered around the house, he's thinking, no, it's bad news. It's bad news. Something is happening. That is not healthy. So, and it can lead to substance abuse. Because usually, when we come to the symptoms, you see that if they're having flashbacks and maybe nightmares, it's very distressing. So you find an escape. Especially if you can't talk about it, you want something that will numb that feeling. People tend to alcohol, people tend to drugs, to smoking, anything that takes their mind off, give them a sense of a different world, and then that's their way of coping. Eventually, sometimes with time, the PTSD symptoms might begin to fade, but once you get an addiction, you have a problem that is now needing dealt with.
Ellen, I think this topic and the discussion is something of importance, because there might be a lot of guys, ladies now smoking, now doing all sort of things. We might think that it's just when they grew up, they just got themselves into, and society will insult them, society will paint them black, that why you guys do that. But probably it's a trace from when they were young. They had to experience something that no one allowed them to talk about it.
Absolutely. And if you want to help somebody, the one thing you cannot do is judge them before you've heard their story. And you should always trace back. Because a lot of the PTSD, for example, we don't normally recognize it as PTSD. It just seems like this child has just got out of hand. And nobody takes the time to sit them down and say, when did this start becoming a thing? What happened? And children will talk if they feel they are in the right space. They feel protected, they feel cared for, and they will tell you that, You see, you know, after we buried mom, we came back from the village, I began to feel lonely, so I started going out with these boys. So, do you see what I mean? Because every time I'm in the room alone, I feel like that was the day mommy died. Do you see that kind of thing? And then you see that there's a trigger to that behavior. That behavior isn't the problem. We need to fix that trigger, that mentality, that flashback or nightmare. And once we are able to deal with that, you will find that the behavior that you are worried or complaining about will be dealt with much easier. So there's always
viewers, if you are watching this, a lot of things are hard spot as you are old now because of what happened to you when you were young, and we don't want this generation to also experience that thing. That's why we are learning this to help our nieces, our nephews, our little siblings, brothers and sisters, to also aid them to come out from certain things they are going through. Let's speak about it. Let's talk about it. Let's help them to understand what we are going through, so that these things wouldn't happen to them. And now we know that children also get depression. We might think that it's only adult. Last week we spoke about signs and symptoms in children who are depressed, and we saw that people even bedwet and kind of stuff because of depression, and it's beautiful. What with some of the examples you were given, what are some of the causes of PTSD?
So causes.
In children,
So we mentioned about the trauma that could lead to them. Usually, when a child will develop PTSD, it depends on the severity of that trauma.
Okay.
How close is it to the child?
To the child.
And how often it's happening. Because some children, you know, maybe, let me use maybe a physical abuse. When it happens once or twice, they're able to deal with it and move on. If it's happening every day, or if they are witnessing their mother being abused by their father every day, because of the frequency and the severity of the occurrence, that could cause the PTSD. Okay, so it's usually how close, how often, and how long it's been going on for. And these traumatic events on a one-off might not do much, but with repeated exposure, that could cause a PTSD issue.
So when the thing is closer to the child, how close it is? You mentioned of the animal bite. For instance, a child seeing snake biting a friend, and probably not the normal bites. Even the wound became something else, and whenever he or she sees snakes, it still lives. So we need not to just squash it and say that, oh, it's nothing.
See, this is nothing thing is the beginning of a lot of things. You know, it's I think no matter how trivial it might seem, especially for children, whatever event happens, let them talk about it. Even if you as the adults or the person listening, you don't see a way or you can help them, just them verbalizing how they feel about the event alone is therapeutic. Because when we come to talk about how we deal with it, you will find that most of the time it's because you don't feel heard and you feel trapped in that memory. You just need a release, you see. So, you know, let them talk about it. It makes me very scared, it makes me this, and just the verbalizing of it alone is one step towards their healing. Another thing that I wanted to mention when we talked about the causes was the child's ability to cope with things. Usually change. You will find that some children, when they go into a new school, take a very long time to adjust. They find going to that school very, you know, anxiety provoking and things like that. When you know that you have a child who finds change or alteration in routine or familiarity hard to cope with, you as the parent need to be more aware and be more of a buffer for them, because the more resilient a child is, the less likely they are to develop some of these mental health conditions like PTSD. Also, a family history could also, you know, we talk about predisposition and a family history. So if the parents themselves find that they are not as well adjusted as they could be. You see, the bottom line is not bashing yourself because you don't feel you're well adjusted. It's recognizing that you are not, and putting measures in place so that your child or the children around you feel able to recognize it in themselves and ask for help when necessary. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to accept and acknowledge rather than hide the fact that you don't feel. Because sometimes when we talk, especially of these deaths that we're talking about, for example, some of the adults find it just as hard to cope with. So it's easier for them to let the kids go away and not come talk about it, because it means they can be left with their own thoughts. But I think that is not the way to go. Even if you as the parents do not feel that you have all the tools to cope with it, let the child open up about it. Because if not for you, for them, because you might be able to hide bits, but the child might grow up in a way and have these memories that might cause them damage going further. So,
what of emotional abuse and probably bullying, emotional abuse?
Yes, and bullying, especially now with this social media things and all this trolling. Again, some kids who are very resilient, it doesn't make any difference to them. Those who are slightly, a little bit more vulnerable, yes, and these are, they're getting sophisticated by the day, this bullying, you know, and one person starts and then all the people join in and it becomes a massive thing. Some people have had to completely delete all their social media accounts because of these things. To the point that some people, every time they see a mobile phone, they're very anxious because they don't know what somebody has replied on their tweets or whatever else it might be. So bullying is a big thing, yes. And emotional abuse, that is a tricky one because you can't always see it. And especially if you are not talking about it, that goes much deeper than any of the others we've talked about. Because sexual abuse is an event.
Yes, an
There's
event,
usually a witness. Emotional abuse usually is a gradual increasing torment on a person's mind, personality, and their very being, if you like. And that on a continuous basis can cause a lot of, and usually it culminates in an event that brings back the memories.
And when this child is being neglected at home, when this child parent doesn't really have time for instance, this pandemic we are a parent now. It's homes are not homes that we used to know. Homes are where you sleep, you wake up and go to work, and when this period when we were locked down, you could hear or see certain things on social media, funny aspect. Fathers and mothers who normally doesn't stay at home now stay at home like they are sick because they should wake up, go to work, come back, see their kids asleep. But now you wake up, you see your children, and it's something else. But then mostly also some of them also neglect their children. Can this neglection cause PTSD in children?
So the neglect will cause the PTSD when it becomes traumatic for the child. So if for example, the neglect is not physical, but maybe emotional, they can never talk to their father. And then it becomes a traumatic event when something has happened, they really need to tell daddy. But they can't. And daddy is not interested. Do you see what I mean? Now that trauma can then propagate into a post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you see what I mean? So, you know, sometimes physical neglect, if a child is not being fed or being given the shelter or the protection that they need, that could cause trauma. Because if you're leaving the child on their own and somebody is taking advantage of them on the streets, then, you know, that can cause an event that then becomes a trigger for post-traumatic stress.
So we can say that children that can be at risk are those who they witness the incidents or it's close to them. Okay. So probably if in case you just joined in, we discussing post-traumatic stress disorder in children. Your little brother, your sister, your little sibling, your little nephew or niece that you're staying with, your cousin, whoever you foster or your father, they might be going through a lot of things that if we don't talk about it, will become trauma. They will become disorder in their life as they are growing. There's this lady I know that she can't watch abusive things as old as she is now. Can I say that it's a disorder? It's a disorder or something?
It's quite possible. It's probably reminding her of a traumatic event in her life.
That happened.
And some of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress is avoiding triggers that remind you of the event. And so yes, and in a way it's a good thing because she's trying to she's protecting her mental health. She knows what would trigger a feeling or an event that she doesn't find comfortable, so she's staying away from it. Sometimes there are things you can avoid, but sometimes that avoidance leads to a very restricted lifestyle, which might not be healthy for you, which is why treating it is the best way to do.
All right. So she needs to treat it as
she needs to deal with it.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll get back to when we come to the treatment and how best we will do. So let me go for this break. When I return, we will talk about the symptoms, the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder in our children, so that when we see these signs and symptoms, we will know that indeed our children are really suffering. Please, please don't go anywhere. If in case you're watching it alone, you can also tell a friend that he or she should watch Hope TVGH. Currently, we are treating what we call post-traumatic stress disorder in children. Please don't go anywhere. I'll be right back.
Are you looking at unlocking life secrets, building a marital mindset, developing successful marriage habits, staying together, resolving conflict, and knowing whether you're a good parent? Then join us on Hope Channel as we present a 10-day relationship seminar under the theme 2 Hearts, 1 Beat. On set will be Dr. Daniel Day, Senior Lecturer in Ethics, Practical Theology and Counseling, Ikwe, inspirational speaker, motivator, teacher, author, life coach, Grace Saki, Lancers counseling psychologist, educator, and retired midwife. Wednesday 15 to Friday 24th April 2020, 7 p.m. each night. Our special guest will be Willie and Elian Oliver, host of Real Family Talk on Hope Channel International, Director of Family Ministries at General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist. Hope Channel, changing lives.
Thank you for staying with me. We ended by something with what we call what causes, and we are talking about the signs and symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, in children. Ellen, what are some of the signs and symptoms that we need to look out for that can tell us that indeed that child is suffering?
Okay, so first of all, you need to see, these are things you need to look out for after a traumatic event.
Yeah.
Usually the timeline helps you decide that this is
what
a
are the
symptom.
timelines?
Usually when there's been a traumatic event, the first few weeks might be the critical point where they might show something, but then there are children who will show nothing.
Nothing, okay.
For months and months, even years.
Okay.
So children are different, and they have different coping skills, and sometimes they pick these skills from their parents. So if they see that, there's not much talk about feelings in this house, they might not then talk about it. But some of the things to look out for is the avoidance of certain situations. So for example, if you had a child who had been sexually abused by a particular relative, for example, they might suddenly no longer want to go to that relative's house. They might not be as happy about going near that family member as they used to be. So things they used to enjoy doing, they may no longer want to do. Alternatively, some might also present in a way where if uncle was a 6-foot dark gentleman, they will not speak or go near any 6-foot dark gentleman. So you see that, so you might see a change in behavior. Sometimes it presents as depression. They are not as happy as they used to be. They might become more withdrawn, more easily upset. Sometimes younger, well, not always younger, but children might regress in their growth. So for example, a child who no longer wets the bed, no longer uses a toy or a comforter when they sleep, suddenly wants a comforter when they're going to bed. They start sucking the thumb, or they start wetting the bed. It seems strange. Sometimes you think your child's possessed by some kind of evil spirit, but it could all be signs showing you that there's been a trauma this child is not dealing with properly. So
let me come in here. With the first thing you said, when a child is failing to go to uncle's place or auntie's place or whoever, you see, parents will usually shout on this child. You are a Kwalaboni. Why don't you want to? Why? And they start become possessive over the child instead of finding out why.
And it's the way you find out the why as well. Because if you, why don't you want to go? We're all going, so you're coming.
You're coming. That's how they will still call
That
in.
wasn't a question. Okay. That was a command.
It's a command,
okay.
Yeah.
But if you say, because some children are very adamant, they might even begin to cry.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
they really do not want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to pull them aside and say, tell me why you really don't want to go. Did something happen the last time you were there? You know, did you get upset? Don't you like going there? What happens when you go there?
They start bowing down their head. They see that there's something that they can...
not right. If you are able to do that properly, you will get the truth.
Yeah.
And it's very key that parents notice some of these things, because a lot of the time the children give us triggers, you know, they give us signs, but it's us who miss it sometimes. So it's important to know your child.
Beautiful.
And when there's something out of place, give them the space, the security, the comfort to talk about it.
Okay. Okay.
You see, so that is very key. The loss of joy for things they used to, because they might love going to play with their cousins, and then is the problem the cousins? What happened last time you were there? It needs exploring in a calm manner, because some parents, as soon as they say uncle did this, what, they completely blow out of proportion, and then that also becomes a trigger for next time. If something happens, they don't want to come and tell mommy, because mommy will make a big scene out of it, and that makes them even more embarrassed.
More embarrassed, okay.
So,
our mummies who are watching, please, when your child tells you something, please don't explode. Don't do that. Don't shout. Don't. No, please. And when they tell you something, they trust you. That's why they are telling you. Please know how best you will manage that situation, that the child will never feel anyway that next time she's not going to tell you anything again. Please. And you made mention of sleeping.
Yes.
A child who doesn't sleep with the comforter will start sleeping. Is it a difficulty in sleeping, or? Yes.
So sometimes they might not be able to sleep at all, because every time they close their eyes, they might be getting nightmares about the events.
Okay. So there's nightmare.
There's nightmares. There are flashbacks.
Okay.
So sometimes it's very hard, and for some people, you know, maybe they were sleeping, and when they woke up, there's trajectory sometimes. Okay. They're very anxious. Every little thing kind of startles them. That could also be a sign.
That's
there is
wonderful.
also a bit where they begin to have a negative feeling about themselves, because especially for those who are physically abused, they think it's my fault. What's wrong with me? Why does daddy always have to beat me? So they develop a negative impression of themselves. They develop very low self-esteem. You find that some children don't look at you when you talk to them. They're very cowardly, very timid. In our environment, sometimes it's considered a virtue. I have to say, but if you know your child and this is a change for them, then it's something you really need to pick up on very quickly, because there might be something triggering that kind of behavior.
Can it affect their eating pattern?
It can. It can. Some people completely lose appetite for food, but some people also use food as an escape. They will just eat. But some typically you'll find that sometimes, especially when there's a trauma, because when you're really disturbed, food is not usually your first thing to go for. So you find that problems with food, problems with sleep can also be signs that something's not right.
If your word is failing to go to school, someone who enjoy going to school, failing to go to school, can it be a factor? It
could be post-traumatic stress. It could, in fact, it could be a range of different things. But in the key, especially with children, is first knowing what's different, because it's not something that there's a trigger, there's an event. And following that, you will see the change. So whether it arrives quickly or slowly, because that change has occurred, you need to pick that up. You need to pick that up. And I think as parents or guardians of little children, don't take anything for granted unless you are 100% sure it has no impact on the child you are looking after. So if something had happened that they had witnessed, or there's been a fight in the compound and there was blood everywhere and things like that, it would seem normal. Everybody goes back into their room and it's fine. There might be one or two children on that compound who found that very distressing. So if you have children in your home, you want to talk about it in a casual way. you will be able to pick up which of the kids in the house is finding it really hard to deal with the fact that someone was cut with a knife a few minutes. Do you see what I mean? And just that interaction will be on the road to healing for that child. But to assume that it's nothing, it could be something years down the line before it begins to show a difficulty in that person's life. So it's important that when traumatic events happen, give room for discussion about it.
But you spoke about bedwetting, right?
Yes.
Urinating on bed.
Yes.
You see, in our culture, in this part of our world, especially Ghana, I don't know about Togo or Cote d'Ivoire, but Ghana, when you are grown up and you urinate on the bed, wahala. Because we think that as an adult or a teenager or an adolescent, you need not to. And people go to the extent of wrapping the bed around and making noise for your friends to see that you have urinated or bed wet.
That alone is a traumatic event. That alone, the memories it leaves in the mind, the pictures it leaves in people's mind is very unhealthy. That is a very bad thing to do, especially for someone who had stopped wetting the bed toddler age and now a teenager beginning to wet the bed. Honestly, any adult associated with that child should be trying to find out what has changed. Do you see what I mean? And an honest conversation might pick up. It might not always be the case, but you know, 8 to 9 times out of 10, there is something that is disturbing this individual that is causing that. And sometimes it's probably just a physiological condition that needs fixing. But you need to ask the right questions.
Because I'm picking something from what you're saying, because conditions doesn't just happen. And if a parent will pick a stick or a cane to cane the child because of wetting bed, or maltreating the child because he or she had wet the bed, which means that parents, we have a lot of things we need to learn so far as this lesson is going on. Because if a parent knows the child well, that when he stopped urinating at the age of 3 or 4 years, and now 12, 13, 14 years he has started, which means there's something that we need to talk about it. Please, I'm passionate about this because most of our teenagers, adolescents, or children are going through stress that we as adults or parents don't know. And when it happens, a parent will tell the child, I'm going to tell your class teacher, I'm going to tell your Sabbath school or your Sunday school teacher. Instead of the parent asking why, they are now taking that responsibility to a class teacher. And that is why your child doesn't trust you. They rather trust their teachers more than you. We are learning. You are the first point of contact to help your child relieve from whatever he or she is going through. Please, as we are studying, we are not, your child's life is in your hand. Whether he will succeed or not, it is in your hand. And let me ask this thing, can death, because probably a child seeing the incident that he or she saw was accident death, would it be dawning on the child that he or she can also die at that age, as the signs and symptoms?
It could be. Some become very afraid of dying, and maybe dying in a violent way.
Okay.
So that every time they hear of a death, they have this fear and distressing feeling about it. Sometimes, for some people, when they've had this event where they've seen a lot of people dying, when they close their eyes, all they see is coffins.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
And that's really traumatic for them. And for those who have, this is why, you know, initially this condition was predominantly in the veterans who'd been to war, who'd seen people dying violently, legs off, heads off, and things like that. The vision of those alone was really traumatic, and that they developed this PTSD. And so for people who have seen violent deaths, it's a very traumatic thing. Even just seeing the dead body alone has an impact on you that, for me, is beyond anything. So we need to bear in mind, especially children. So sometimes I see why parents do not want to discuss death with children. But there is also a fine line, because it's inevitable. We will all, if Jesus isn't here anytime soon, we will all reach that point. And so it's something that we probably need to demystify so that people are not afraid of. But in traumatic death experiences, if a child should see anything like that, it's very important that you discuss and talk about it with
them. Before Ellen comes in again, I want to read something small from our Facebook page. He said, Esther Bouchard, good evening, brothers and sisters. Esther, good evening, wherever you find yourself, good evening. And another Emmanuel Rurangwa, thank you, Hope Channel. Thank you also for watching online. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And Buhari Ali Brown, hello, my people, watching from Guadeloupe. Thank you so much, Buhari, for watching. And Caleb Bichon, hello, good evening, watching live from Kintampo. Caleb, God bless you for watching with us. Okay, so Ellen, with what we saying, we need to get connected with our children before they grow. With the experiences you are sharing, children who have lived in the places where there's war-dominant places. That's why probably those who experience Ghana, those who experience the coup, the feud, they don't want anything of such should happen. Yes. And I quite remember when there was this reconciliation in Ghana, and people were asked to talk about experiences in the coup age. I don't know, but I got so much from that program, because if somebody should let go of what we are talking about, for him or her to be okay, when he or she was young, the parent failed to tell him or her the truth about something that happened, before he or she can treat it, unless she, in a way, I would say, forgive from the heart, because if there's no forgiving it, we will treat it. But yet, when you see these people who are still alive, you might still go back. It will be serve as a trigger. So it is something else. What we are treating is something else. I haven't closed yet, but I'm thanking you for whatever you are sharing. We are sharing with us. Aside these, as we are saying, they probably might have problems in school when they are a student. They start. You
see that their academics will decline.
We need not to pull a cane.
No.
To be the child. In fact, some of our parents have.
You see, we can't judge them because that was what they knew.
Ellen, let's speak the truth.
The truth is that if they parented us like their parents parented them. And so it's about the knowledge base. Now, our generation are more exposed, and we have learned a lot of things. Now, we will be doing our kids a disservice if we didn't take that on and make theirs a different experience. Because maybe that's all they knew. And for a long time, cane was the one thing that seemed to fix everything.
But was it helping? Was it fixing?
Well, it clearly didn't fix a lot of things.
All right.
It clearly didn't fix a lot of things. But then, there was the other side of it where parents felt they were being too soft by talking. So talking isn't a thing, and it's definitely not an African thing. And it's I don't know, I don't want to generalize, but perhaps families, and a lot of the time, children seem to listen to fathers more.
Yeah.
Fortunately or unfortunately, fathers are not talkers.
No, it matters.
So I say a majority are not. There are some who are. A majority are not talkers. So it's a balance that we need to get and realize that, we should take a cue from the fact that a lot of these conditions that are affecting our minds, affecting how people behave and think, are things that are solved with therapy and counseling. That should be telling us something. That, if we were talking more, getting to the root of things, not covering things over and painting them as if they were okay, we might be more well adjusted as adults and even as children growing up. So.
All right. Hi, my name is Efia Gold. My mom once told me if I inflict balloon, I will die. Gosh. Instead of her telling me if the piece gets into my throat, I might die. Since then, I fear balloons, and I don't even know how to inflict balloon. And if I even see someone inflicting it, I scream.
Yes.
So is a good parent. Is good parent tell us the right reasons? Yes, that's what you're saying. See, instead of telling you now, if you're as old as you are still afraid of balloon. If your balloon wouldn't kill you, it won't kill you. Okay, if you it won't unless it's.
And let me say something to all the adults and parents out there. Please, always tell the kids the truth. Maybe what you need to do is find the right language don't quote it in any kind of lie at all. If you think they are not old enough to understand it, your answer should be, I don't think you will understand it now. No, I will tell you in a few years when I feel you are able to understand it. They accept that. But to lie to them, especially when it comes to things like sex, physical abuse, and please, it's because the damage it causes when they have these confusing or mixed images, we underestimate. Having worked in this field for over 10 years, I can tell you, you will cause significantly less damage by telling a child the truth about a situation than you would by lying. Because kids, they know. And eventually they will catch on to the fact that what they were told was a lie, but they might not be able to reverse the feelings that come with whatever they experienced then. So that's my
all right. So as we're saying, let's speak the truth. Let's tell the kids what they need to, especially what she's saying, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all those things. Let's tell them the truth because it's really important. Hello, good evening. Tres from Cape Coast. Please, I would be very glad if you can help me. I have a sister who's still bedwet at 12. I also happen to realize she has a low self-esteem. What could be the problem and how can we help her?
Okay. Please, talk to your sister. Is she wetting at 12 because she wet all the way from baby to 12? Or was there a period where she was okay? You need to try and figure that out. And find out what it is that is giving her that low self-esteem. Because one of the things that we're going to talk about when it comes to treating it is to encourage them, help them to build up their self-esteem, help them to understand it's okay to say no. It's okay to push back anything you don't feel is in your best interest. Because I can understand his concern for his sister, because at the age of 12 if you have such a low self-esteem, you can very easily be pulled in directions that you know is not right, but you don't have the confidence to say no to. So I would say talk to your sister. If you find it difficult, find someone with a calm demeanor, someone who is mature, who can talk to your sister for you, because she needs to build up herself. It's very important, not just because, you know, it's unhelpful for her now, but even growing to be an adult. Having a low self-esteem doesn't bode well at all, because then people kind of push and pull you in different directions. All right. So please, get someone to, either you talk to her or get someone to talk to her who will be calm enough to get the bottom line. All right. So Trace, that is what I'll go for my last break. If I return, we'll talk about the diagnosis and treatment of PTSD in children. After the break, if you really want to join in a phone call, the number to call is 0302 959065, 0302 959065, or you can also keep your WhatsApp message coming and we'll read it for you. Please don't go anywhere, stay, and we will be right back.
Ghana Adventist Services, we have 33 health facilities across the country. Your health facilities no, emu edunum eye hospitals, and emu edunai eye clinics, emiensa eye training institutions, and a bakon eye babia yedi yenrugu na yedema our hospitals. I'm here appealing to you to contribute to Hope Channel COVID-19 Fund. Sika yebenyano yedi beto PPEs edi ama ya doctor for ya nurses abom hoban. Yedi beto nuro edi asawona yare na achi wono yare. Yedi bebo daru health education se na be yare enche amanfo.
Se opese odefa momo pay so mia star 170 hash. Afi na we mia 2 Momo Pay and Pay Bill. Wasan emia 1 Momo Pay. Na fe wemia 547132 merchant number no. Na fe sikadodoa opese wode boa no. Wabo eno so ede aka ho. Na afe wemia reference number COVID-19. Afe na wemia wo pin code no.
We are encouraging you to contribute. With 10 cities, and 100, and 1,000, and 1 million, other mayeno. It will save millions of people. Yami Shao, wabra why wadwen say obe contribute to.
Welcome back. Ellen, I have few time. How best can we diagnose PTSD in children here?
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things, so you can tell it's a little bit complex.
Okay.
So when parents or guardians or siblings, relatives see symptoms that suggest that a child might be having issues with a previous stressful or traumatic event, they need to get them to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or someone who understands or is trained in the diagnosis of mental health conditions. Now, when we talk mental health, a lot of people are scared and no, that's not the way.
That is true.
Because the sooner you seek help, the better. There is help available.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's important to get them diagnosed properly, because there could be other things. We said it could be associated with depression, it could be associated with anxiety, substance abuse. With the psychologist or the trained mental health practitioner can filter where the real issue is, so that treatment can be done accordingly.
And what is the span? What is the span? Should it be a week or two? When should we?
As soon as you see a symptom, it's better for you to go and be told nothing than to wait, let it filter and affect the person's quality of life for such a period of time, where, because we all know we have a finite period on this earth, any life or time lost you can't regain. And for your loved ones, you really want them to have the best quality of life possible. So the first sign of anything concerning, take them to see a doctor, take them to see a psychiatrist. If going to a psychiatrist is daunting for you, go to a regular doctor and say, I think I have concerns about this. They might be able to do an initial simple assessment and then tell you, maybe I really recommend you go and see a psychiatrist. But at the moment, there's a lot of help out there. So don't be worried, don't be scared. There's nothing really to be concerned about. My concern is leaving it too late and then realizing you could have helped if you had done so sooner.
All right. So with the lady who called, the one who tested from Cape Coast with the 12-year-old.
With the sibling, I would suggest see a counselor. It's two things. It could be something related to her mental health, or it could be physical. So I would say, you know, by the age of 12, if it's been a continuous thing, maybe you've tried different things. But first talk to them, see if there's something bothering them, see if because they are usually underlying issues. If it's not mental health related, it could be very easily fixed physically with maybe a tablet or two to control the bladder. So it's fixable, if that's a word. Please go and get them checked out, and encourage them to see that there is a solution. They don't need to be so low self-esteemed about it. Maybe that's why she's got a low self-esteem, because of the bed wetting. So family members play a very big role when it comes to things like this. No shaming, no making them feel less than they are, making them realize, yes, there's a problem, but we can fix this together. And that would be the first step to helping her bring back her.
All right, so we are watching you from Odoko. Thanks for the lady for sharing ideas. Thank you, Lydia, partner, and thank you so much for watching. I had there was this guy who was sick, and you made mention of when it talks about mental psychiatry, we have that perception about it. When he was sent to psychiatry hospital, he didn't do anything. After returning, he came to tell the mom, "You thought I was mad, right? So he took me to psychiatry hospital. You shall see." And the boy's attitude changed all of a sudden. He can threaten the mother of killing her, take TV, go sell, like, because you said I'm mad. That's why you took me to psychiatry. I'm showing you that I'm really mad. How can you wipe away that perception about taking our ward to a psychiatry or mental because
so I think it begins from the premise by which the person is sent to the psychiatrist, especially when the child is old enough to understand. You need to talk to them about it. So this young man, unless he was showing psychotic symptoms where they couldn't reason with him, the ideal thing would have been to talk to him and say, we think this is a problem. We think we should take you for an assessment.
Okay.
Sometimes the resentment comes when they don't feel it's being done in their best interest. Other times, maybe this behavior is part of his psychiatric presentation. Maybe he's not well controlled. And if he is well controlled and gets his thinking in the right order, might find his mom only did it for his best interest. So it's two things. So it's either, you know, he felt demeaned or embarrassed by being taken there, or he felt his mom did it for selfish reasons, and so he'll show her.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
Usually mental health recovery is a collaborative effort between the person who is not well and their closest relatives. So it needs to be seen as a joint project or joint venture, if you like. That's why I was saying to this young man, talk to your sister, let her understand we can fix this.
Yes.
So when they know you are in it with them, it's not like they are sick, they're going to get you know, sorted while you sit and wait. And in the meantime, they are an embarrassment, so you won't tell anybody that this is what's going on. That alone is mentally taxing for the individual involved.
So young persons shouldn't be afraid when this ailment we should go take the person to...
Not at all. When you have a headache, you're not embarrassed to ask the pharmacist for Panadol.
Okay.
Are you?
Okay. No,
so what is... Meanwhile, this is our powerhouse. This is where all our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, whether we will succeed or not, comes from up here. So if this is where our powerhouse is, why are we embarrassed to fix it? I see it as one of the devil's ways of getting us to... Because even the Bible talks about our mind being the place where we get transformed by. That is where the Holy Spirit speaks to us. You know, there's so many things that goes on in this mind that we need to guard the avenues of this mind. So don't be embarrassed by it. And you need to seek your interests as priority. If your physical health is so important to you, why is your mental health embarrassing to you?
Okay.
You're okay to say you've got cancer, but you don't want to say you're depressed and you are undergoing therapy.
Do they even know they are depressed? Do we know? Because what we are discussing, a lot of people are now taking it into consideration. Things that happened when they were young, they are now bringing it to their present life, and they are thinking, okay, that's why. But I think that with the clarification you're giving to us on mental health or psychiatry, we shouldn't be afraid to go to psychiatry hospital, because even if you go to, we have the general OPD, we have the mental one. So in case they know that where your mind is getting to, it's above abnormality, then which means that for your own goodness, for your own sake, for your own health, you need to, for instance, I would tell myself that whatever will make me fine. If I'm sick, whatever medicine that they'll prescribe for me to be okay,
willing to.
I don't care wherever I'll get the medicine. So for us, it is being prescribed by the doctor, telling me to go there. I need to go there, pick it up and drink, because I want to live life back again.
But you see, there's also a lot of stigma attached to walking into these facilities. There are other options. There are people who are trained in mental health management and analysis who can go through what we call CBT and things like that with you. So look for them. Do you see what I mean? Seek the avenue that you feel most will suit you. But whatever you do, get help. Do you see what I mean? There's this perception that if you work with psychiatric patients, you also go mad. I mean, you've had guests on this show. If you see me on the street, could you tell that I have worked with mental health? You see your guest last week, you know, there is no, you know, mystery surrounding this thing. The bottom line is you need to get help. The first step for getting well is to acknowledge that there is a problem that needs fixing. Once you acknowledge that, you are one step forward, and there is help available. So don't let what people will say and how you think you'll be viewed stop you from seeking the help that you need. And certainly don't do that for your children.
Don't do that for your children. Our children need our help, and in fact, if we don't help them, they'll grow to become something else. And when we allow them to grow, we can't help correct what they began with when they were young. Children are a heritage of the Lord, because He has instilled it in ourselves, and we need to be good stewards in their life. One day you'll be asked, how were you able to take care of your child? And if you can't answer, I don't know where you stand. But it's a prayer that you're going to learn. As we started learning, we are not done yet. We have few questions to go, but then my time wouldn't permit me to continue. I'll bring her back again to continue with how can it be treated, the parental role helping the child who is going through PTSD, and when should you call a professional for your child? These are some of the things that is left for us to discuss, and our time is up, and I wouldn't waste their time. Let me use this privilege to thank the husband. The husband is right here in the studio, making sure that everything goes well with the wife, and it's good. Behind every successful man is a woman, so behind every successful woman there's also a man who always encourage her to do what she likes doing best. Mr. Yanka, God bless you for joining us in the studio. You wouldn't see him, but he's right here with us, and all the crew who made it possible for this show to come into reality. God bless you also, who also are home watching with us. Those who send messages, may God bless you. And if there's anything you want us to discuss next time when we continue, you can bring in your questions and your contributions, and we'll read it for you. Once again, help me thank Mrs. Ellen Yanka for helping us throughout today's discussion. And I'm your humble servant, your regular host, Pastor Daniel. And I say, please, the fact that the ban have been lifted doesn't mean that we need to go and lift coronavirus to our homes. We need to stay put. If you have nothing to do at town, please stay home and just relax yourself. Until then, we'll meet, if God permits, next week Wednesday. We say, God bless you and have a goodbye. I'm out.